Hello, guys. So today's guest is Corpodian. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Um, Very down-to-earth guy, very successful guy. Wrote a book about emotional. I need to look it up. Emotional fitness, he calls it. He got inspired by Tony Robbins. Has a great background story on overcoming cancer. Yeah, and just a go-getter. What did he say, David? He said, I might not be the smartest person, but I outwork everyone. I think that was
Yeah,
his.
I mean, I
I loved it.
super high achiever is basically the only way that
Yeah.
I could describe him. He said that he did, was it high school in, I don't know, he did high school in a lot less years than anyone. Then like graduated a lot earlier with his orthodontistry.
Yeah.
But and it's almost like he hit his midlife crisis about 2 decades before the rest of us.
Yeah.
Um,
He's a spring chicken, isn't he?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean, super interesting chat.
Yeah.
Lots of great takeaways. Yeah, this is a good one.
Yeah. Love it.
Welcome to the Man Up, Man Down podcast, presented by Volker Beluda and David Pawsey. We discuss the pressures and challenges faced by men approaching middle age that we're often too embarrassed to speak about with our friends. You can find us online at www.manupdown.com. Enjoy the show and don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review.
So welcome to another episode of Man Up, Man Down as we continue our series of welcoming US guests. And today we're delighted to welcome Corey Corpodian. Corey hosts Unleash Success, one of the top entrepreneurship podcasts worldwide, and recently broke through the 100,000 subscriber mark on YouTube. So congratulations there. The podcast features big names like Tom Bilyeu, who's I'm a big fan of. He's written some incredible books. He's also got the podcast Impact Theory. Also Bedros Keuilian of Fit Body Bootcamp and Monty Moran, former CEO of Chipotle. So obviously some big household names there. From becoming a board-certified orthodontist at 26 to running multi-million-dollar practices to pursuing his true calling as an entrepreneur, Corey's story is rooted in reinvention. As the author of Emotional Fitness and an international keynote speaker for multi-million-dollar organizations and the US Marines, Corey's all about helping leaders and business owners build mental toughness, rewire their confidence, and master the art of impactful communication. And as we were just sort of discussing earlier, that is quite an art form at the moment. But as I say, welcome, Corey. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, it's great to have you here.
Thanks so much. Great intro. Really appreciate that. And I'm excited to be on the guys' show.
So, I mean, obviously we sort of rushed through that intro, or I rushed through it, but, sort of going from being an orthodontist, obviously running successful businesses at 26. I mean, can you sort of talk to us about that stage of your journey? I mean, was sort of dentistry something you're always interested in? Do you come from a family of dentists?
Right. So I don't actually. And, I talk about kind of that background a lot because uh, when we're growing up as kids, we're all given a blueprint for success, whether specifically said to us or shown to us through our peers or our mentors or our family. We think that there is this step-by-step framework for success. And in my family, that was either become a doctor or a lawyer. So I was driven. I said I wanted to be an orthodontist at maybe 12, 13 years old. I probably said I wanted to be a firefighter at 10, right? But, that fit the framework for success in my family. And I kind of just kept going down that path. What ended up happening was, I was very driven. I did high school in 3 years, graduated a year early as valedictorian. I did college in 3 years, and that's how, I go dental school is 4 years, residency 3 years. That's how I graduated at 26. And I was already a board certified orthodontist at that point. I didn't necessarily come from a family of dentists that was the push. It was my dad trying to make sure we had a secure future because he was more of a sales guy, an entrepreneur, had owned a couple businesses here and there, didn't really work out always, had highs and unfortunately lows. And so, they looked at that as something secure. I looked at that as a secure profession. What happened was, though, is I just was so, head down, driven to accomplish this that I didn't really pick my head up until I was in the middle of dental school. And I thought, do I really want this? Now, dental school is really hard, right? So you got to excel. And if you want to be an orthodontist, you got to be in the top 5%. So I struggled to understand, was it hard and I wanted to quit? Or was it something I just didn't really like and I should just, stop right there? But, I'm not a quitter, and that's ingrained in me throughout my life. It's really hard for me to ever give up on anything. And I had already had this goal for many years. So I pushed through, ended up waking up at 26 years old after practicing for about a year and thinking, is this it? Is this what the rest of my life is supposed to be like? And is this all there really is? I I was struggling mentally significantly, and I had been struggling for a few years, but man, when I got to the end of the journey, so to speak, where on paper I was massively successful and people would be like, "Wow, I can't believe you're a board certified orthodontist. You went to New York University, like you're, running these practices, you're making all this money." But I was miserable inside. And a quote that really stuck with me at that time that kind of just nailed exactly what happened in my life was a Tony Robbins quote that says, "Success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure." And I thought, damn, that's me. That's my life. And I wouldn't have really changed anything. I went into working out heavily because that was something that I could get my, frustration out. It was good for my physical fitness, my mental fitness. And I started competing in men's physique. I won a state championship. I went to nationals. I was going for my pro card when I went to a doctor's appointment, routine checkup. I hadn't been to a dermatologist in over 10 years. Now, granted, I went through anatomy and I know what, bad things look like, but when you're in the bad mental state, you're just not thinking logically. So sure enough, I get a biopsy of a mole, small mole on my chest, no bigger than the size of my pinky nail, and it's melanoma. And when they told me that, intellectually, I knew what that meant. The most dangerous skin cancer there is. It's very aggressive. But emotionally, I was like, okay, so like just cut the little thing out. They're like, no, we're going to have to remove they drew a baseball size impression on my chest. And I was like, wait a second, I'm competing. I'm going to go for my pro card. This can't happen. And I said, can I wait 6 months? And I remember saying, if you wait 6 months, you'll lose half your chest. If you wait a year, you might not be here. It took a while for that to sink in. And that is really what changed everything for me. And I call it my memento mori. It's remember that one day you will die. I think many people in life aren't necessarily afraid of death, but are they really living? And until you're pushed to that point where death could be around the corner, could be a possibility. Now, I caught it early. I was fine, very lucky, cancer free. They were able to just cut it out. But until you face that, that's when you realize I got more to live for. I got to do something. I have to change something. And out of desperation, I was able to change my entire life. I had to come to that point. And so I always say, out of my greatest pain came my greatest strength.
Oh, quite a story. So what is it you do then today? Basically.
So I do a number
Yeah.
of different things. I still have a practice as an orthodontist. I have a dental marketing company that I run that helps acquire different dental leads for different dental offices. I'm in the process of getting out of my orthodontic practice, and then I have my podcast and really my entire ecosystem of Unleash Success. So with Unleash Success, I do obviously motivational speaking for different organizations. I wrote the book Emotional Fitness, which really is about, for men especially, we're not emotional creatures, but emotions are signals that cause us to act. So emotional fitness is how to understand those signals, awareness, and how to control our emotions instead of letting them control us so that we can accomplish our goals. Because if you have a goal, but you're distracting yourself out of fear. And you don't say it's fear, you just say, oh, I'm stressed out. But, or you're, anxious, or, maybe you're angry. You're not using your emotions to fuel your fire, and you're not pushing towards your goal. You're moving away from them. And so for emotional fitness, it's mental health, mental awareness, but really I'm action orientated. So I'm all about results. So that's what emotional fitness is geared towards, how to help you get results that you want, shift your identity, become who you're meant to be. And in that entire ecosystem too, we started helping people communicate more effectively. That's one of the biggest things, right? So obviously you guys have a podcast, I have a podcast, and I interview a lot of people. I've been on a lot of different podcasts, and I've interviewed a lot of people. People sometimes don't know how to tell their story in a way that's impactful. They don't know how to chunk it down into ways that they can make a difference. So one of the things I help entrepreneurs and leaders really scale their business through speaking effectively. And the last thing that me and my wife started doing, we just had 2 young kids, by the way. This is the last little thing, just a little plug. I just, I'm proud of it because I'm proud of my wife. When we had 2 kids, we were like, we really want to help our children grow up into strong, emotionally intelligent human beings that have resiliency, that have courage, that are kind. And, I started thinking, what did my parents do? They said things to me like, Corey, as long as you work hard enough, you can accomplish anything. And that plays in my head over and over and over again. That became a core belief of mine. So we created this little book. We're in the middle of the pre-launch, so just like pre-ordering it, but it's called I Am Animal Affirmations. And it teaches kids empowering emotions through the world of animals. So one of them is, I am brave like the lion. With courage deep inside my heart, I'll face each challenge from the start. So we've got pictures and animals. And really, like, my mission in life is to help wake people up to the possibility of what is, right? And as I became a father, I realized, I can help mold these kids to build up their self-confidence through a number of different ways. And so we're really proud about that book. It's called I Am Animal Affirmation. So that's what we're doing now. Very exciting stuff, just trying to make a difference in the world, right? Because I think you start with yourself, you change yourself first. If you can't change yourself, you can't help anybody else. And then it's not like you'll help the world. You got to make sure your family's right. So help your family, get your family right. And after you've done yourself, your family, then you can start to reach out and help impact the world.
I love that. We have to get the link for the show notes for the book, so that we're going to help promoting that, because as you know, and as a therapist, I always say that, right? A lot of the stuff we're doing in life, right? These affirmations come from childhood, right? And sometimes they're positive, but often they can be quite negative as well, right? So we need more positive affirmations.
That's the crazy thing about people don't realize what they're saying, the story they tell themselves every day. It comes from childhood, a decision you made when you were a kid, when you were 5 years old, 7 years old. But you say it whether it's positive or unfortunately negative. And that you just repeat to yourself over and over.
There's a poem by Larkin, I forgot his first name, but it starts pretty much, they fuck you up, your mom and dad. They don't mean to, but they do. Sure, you've heard that before.
Yeah, I mean, one of the goals is just to not fuck up, right? It's like, these kids are wonderful. They're full of wonder and awe and excitement, curiosity, love. And it's like, we got to just make sure we keep that.
100%.
I mean, it's interesting, you're obviously talking about the impact that you want to have on your children and the impact that your parents had on you. I mean, you sort of said about your dad being an entrepreneur and having highs and lows. I mean, so what did you learn from that? Because obviously seeing the lows, but also, I mean, would you say you're more successful than your dad? I mean, and obviously we've already debated what success actually means, but
right, and that I think that's a key difference there. I'll start with your first question about watching them go through highs and lows, and the most important lesson I really learned from that is that human beings can find a way to survive anything. I've seen my dad start, a cleaning business. I used to go clean offices with him. I've seen him start and become very successful at an office equipment business that unfortunately in the 2001 era, dot-com bubble, that caused a bankruptcy in our life. And then I saw my parents together become even more successful than ever before, when they were doing real estate in Las Vegas in 2004 to 2007, right? Right before the crash. And unfortunately, they had all their eggs in one basket. And so what I learned is that there's a strategy to success, right? There's a blueprint, there's a strategy, but it's what you do when you fail that defines how successful you are over your life. And I think that's why emotional fitness is so important, to have the resiliency to pivot when things don't go according to plan. I saw my parents lose everything twice in my life, and we had to move, find a job to wherever it was. We moved one time to Bloomington, Indiana, small little town known for IU basketball, beautiful town, but it was like a last resort. First job my dad got, we just took off. And because we were bankrupt. And so I learned that you can survive anything. What I've tried to implement in my life is not just to survive, but to really learn to thrive. And I didn't really understand this as a kid growing up. It's not like I made these decisions. This is when I was, 26, 27, 28 years old, going through my own personal development journey, that I looked back and realized the impact that they had on me. But I will tell you this, another positive benefit of having a dad who was very driven and very focused, even if he failed at times, was that I had an example of how I could be. And so I would strive to be like that. Now, at the same time, I had an example of what not to do, right? But I had to learn my own way and apply it myself. Success is so many different definitions. My dad has gone up and down as far as financial success, but I'm proud to say today that, he's probably doing better than he ever has been. And it's that I think seeing my sister, my youngest sister, who's 11 years younger than me, just got married 2 weeks ago, and watching my dad walk her down the aisle and give a speech that was, unfortunately at times he wasn't always as coherent and, he's had some health issues and stuff, but was on point, was funny, was loving. And it was just a beautiful thing to be able to watch my dad because, I didn't know if he'd be here for her wedding. And so that was a concern. So I think overall, he's very successful.
I mean, as you were telling that story, and I was like, oh, well, you've answered my question, because the sort of scenarios you're describing is like that would easily tear families apart. But, I'm like, oh, well, the fact that you like my mum and dad work together, and it's like, well, that's the success is, working together to overcome
I
what's
might
just
have
happened.
skipped over it. I'm transparent, So unfortunately, my parents did end up getting divorced after that last
Oh,
that
right.
last one. But what life throws challenges, and both my parents, made mistakes, but both of them are amazing people in their own way. And you just have to accept them. Hey, these are your parents, right? I'm not going to talk about their mistakes. I'm going to talk about what the positive things are. And that's what I like to focus on. Uh, the financial difficulties that we had as kids helped shape me and my mentality. So that's important to me. But what I will say is that after years of kind of a family not really functioning as well together, I'm just proud that over the weekend, you're coming to me at the right time, right? Where over the weekend, or 2 weekends ago, my sister got married. We took a family photo, which we haven't taken a family photo, the five of us. So I've got two sisters, my mom and dad, the five of us together since I was probably 15 years old.
Wow.
Right. And just to see everybody genuinely happy in this photo, it meant the world to me. So, it does go full circle, but it's not always necessarily the fairy tale story that we all hope we can get.
Yeah. Well, but it's life, and
Right. Right.
it's what you described there. Yeah. And I've sort of been in my parents' divorce when I was 7, and yeah, it is kind of when there is a wedding and and there is a family photo. Yeah, you kind of it warms the
When
heart.
I got married, it wasn't quite the same, and that's okay. But both my parents were there for me. They loved me. It was great. But this time, several years later, I was like, man, everybody's really doing great now, and it's just a beautiful thing.
It's great. I don't know how to lead on from that. So we I had another question, because you mentioned all the things you were doing earlier, right? Obviously there's a lot of mindset work that you're doing and teaching and talking about, but then you're doing a lot of stuff yourself. I mean, how do you juggle all that without, if I say, needing to burn out? And you mentioned, mental difficulties when you were younger. Do you still have, mental health issues, or did you overcome them and just broke through it, or what?
That's why I developed emotional
Yeah.
fitness, because at the end of the day, I went through all my troubles when I was younger, got better. Then I, get a girlfriend, buy a business, start stretching myself out thinner, make financial mistakes, have kids. As you stretch yourself further apart, as you reach for more things, that strains your own mental and emotional
Yeah.
fitness. Just like physical fitness, if you don't work out, I could run marathons, I could run, a 5-minute mile, I could bench press 225 pounds 20 times, and then I stop working out for 10 years. And I couldn't do a single thing. So, do I experience at times burnout? Yes, unfortunately. But it often comes at, some extreme times. I just had my second kid. My son was born 4 months ago. So not really sleeping very much, right? I probably am experiencing a little bit of burnout at this time. And there's different ways that I, go about it, but I focus on going back to the basics of trying to master emotional fitness. How do I prep for the day? A lot of times I prep the night before. If I write down 3 things I want to accomplish the night before, it's great. If I don't do it the night before, for whatever reason, things happen, I do it the morning of. And I wasn't doing that for a while, and I started to not feel like I was accomplishing enough, because I follow the 80-20 rule, or the Pareto principle. 80% of our results come from 20% of our actions. And I found that when I write down at least once a week 3 actions, and I don't mean write down in your phone. There's something about physically writing something down on a piece of paper that when you write down your goals, and they've shown studies about writing down goals, you're 40% more likely to accomplish them. And this is anecdotal as far as whether or not typing it into a phone is different than writing it down. I feel like when I write it down, it's more concrete. It just happens more often. I'm more convinced I got to do this. So I write down 3 things that I'm going to accomplish that move the needle, because people get caught up too much in the minutia of life, and that slows them down. A lot of times, if you accomplish those 3 things, you don't really need to do the other things. They just fall into place.
Hello folks, it's Volker here. I hope you enjoy this week's episode. As you know, I coach executives, whether that is for leadership skills, or sales leadership skills, or working as a therapist too. There are few ways I can help you to get unstuck, improve your work-life balance, or become a better version of yourself. So you will be more productive and have more time for your family. Whatever it is, you can join my client list of people from General Electric, Pepsi, DHL, Boots, and many others. Book a free exploratory call via my website, www.obnat.us. That's OBNAT.us. Now back to the show.
So how to avoid burnout? It's really you have to consistently do the right things. You have to consistently refocus, consistently change your state, consistently prep your mindset. Whether that's, going for a run in the morning. I love the sauna. The sauna is my time to spend 15 minutes to sweat it all out. It's healthy, detox, feel good. Then also, I sit there and I sometimes bring my phone in, sometimes I don't. And when I don't, it's very quiet, and I'll just sit there and think, and that's my form of meditation. So there's a lot of different avenues that people have to go through, but the more you try to accomplish in life, you've got to learn how to, 1, master yourself, 2, use leverage other people's time and energy so that you're not the one always being burnt out. And 3, rebalance. I don't really believe in perfect balance. I think that in moments of life, we strive 100% towards one goal, while maybe you can juggle 3 things at once, right? Business, family, and maybe finances, right? But all of a sudden your friendships are suffering, your body's suffering, your family's suffering. So it's hard, but you're really focused on business. That's the main goal. And maybe finances is bumped up because of that. But then your family's starting to suffer. So now you got to go, all right, let me flip it around. So, you got to reset yourself every month to try and make sure you're kind of rebalancing it. Because it's like when you're on the wheel of life, right? And that's what I talk about a lot is wheel of life, all these different segments, parts of our life. Well, a wheel, if you have 4 wheels on a car and they're not perfectly balanced, and you try to go 30 miles an hour, it's not too bad. It's a little bumpy. Try to go 100 miles an hour, it's going to wreck, right? It's no balance, no control. So you're going to be a little imbalanced as you start to go faster, but then you have to refocus, rebalance, and calibrate those wheels so you're able to kind of speed through life and accomplish what you want.
So what? Sorry. I was just going to say, I mean, sort of what are the early signs of burnout that you notice? I mean, you sort of talked about balance there and also, obviously there are times where you have deadlines or a work project and you got to sort of put in 12-hour days and then, but so what, I mean, when do you kind of, is it your wife sort of saying to you, oh, you're getting a bit short? Sorry, as it, you haven't got much patience, which is what my wife says to me when I'm getting to that place.
Yeah, I mean, awareness is key. Checking in with yourself. Obviously, your significant other is going to let you know. My wife will let me know for sure. I don't think 12-hour days, 16-hour days, can, up to a deadline or a project are going to cause burnout because you're pushing yourself for a week, 2, maybe 4, and all of a sudden, you finish the goal, you accomplish it, you relax. So you feel accomplished in that moment. You got the job done, and then you can relax. So you might feel tired and it's hard work, but burnout comes when, and this is always what I struggle with sometimes, is burnout comes when you're consistently, not just hard work, but you're doing things that don't bring you energy. They suck energy away from you, right? And we all have to do things that we don't like to do. But if you're consistently doing stuff that isn't enriching your life, giving you purpose and fulfillment over time, and it can take longer for some people, depending on how well you train yourself and how you reframe the situation. For many years, orthodontics was a negative aspect of my life, but as I started to reframe it to more of a business perspective, it allowed me to find joy in certain aspects of it. I like the business side more than the clinical side. Now, don't get me wrong, I love helping people and the clinical side, but sometimes there's some monotony to it that is not as exciting to me as business. So reframing the situation so that you can find some joy, purpose, and fulfillment out of it is helpful. And I think if you're consistently doing something day in, day out, that you feel your energy being drained away from you, that's what leads to burnout. You need to find stuff that brings energy back to you. Like you guys mentioned before we got on this podcast, we're getting ready for the weekend, right? And a lot of times for everybody, the weekend's like a great time. Like you could have a really rough day at work. You could be exhausted, super tired, and your buddy's like, hey man, do you want to go get some beers and watch a game? And you're like, hell yeah, I do, right? Like, let's go have fun. And suddenly, boom, you've got energy. Why is that? Because that experience brings energy into your life. Me and my wife, we like to do stuff together. If she goes, hey, do you want to go work out? Or do you want to go surfing? I'm like, oh, hell yeah. Like, that sounds fun. Like, all of a sudden you get this burst of energy. You're excited. So finding things in your life, in your work life, that bring you that joy and that energy.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, it's in the clock here, right? So we're almost there. Time of recording. That's always my Friday code when it comes to the end of the
Oh yeah.
Shouldn't promote drinking here, but hey.
I you know what, and not saying you have to do it to, enjoy yourself or anything like that, but everything in moderation, even moderation, right? Like, it's like sometimes you just got to go have fun and, hang out with
That's
the
what
boys.
I'm talking about. Moderation is all, isn't it, David?
Yeah, well, and it is like like you said, it is all about balance and sort of, and it's almost like, well, sort of during the summer, you find that you might be out drinking more, and then, sort of gets to autumn or, fall to our American cousins. See, I know the lingo. Um, basically you don't go out as much, and then sort of you get to Christmas, well, yeah, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year, and then again it's sort of you overindulge, and yeah, it's sort of I guess it's all right in small doses. But yeah, moderation, listeners.
Look, I think, I've stopped drinking many times during my life for several different months. Recently, when my wife was pregnant for about 10 months. And, a lot of people are like, how do you feel about your life? Like, do you feel better? Like, because a lot of people, it's a big trend in America right now where people are stopping drinking. And I think this is important for people to note that if you're drinking to escape something in your life, that's probably a problem, right? There's certain things that my wife and I like to do, like wine tasting, or sometimes some of my friends will, like, we go to a brewery, you kind of got into it. It's part of our culture, right? So there's that aspect, but then it becomes a problem if you're doing it to escape something in your life. So when I stopped drinking, people were like, how do you feel? Do you feel better? Do you feel more energetic, more focused, more clear? And granted, I've said this before, but like I don't know if it's because I process alcohol differently than other people, but like I've gotten hangovers, but it's not like debilitating to me. And I feel like nothing really changed, right? It's not that I wasn't clear. I've always been clear. I've always been focused. I've always been driven. And sometimes, being able to have fun one night helps me, work harder the next day. But with that said, I considered not drinking, ever again, right? Because I was interviewing Bedros Keuilian, who's founder of Fit Body Boot Camp, built over a $200 million empire, and he's maybe 50, I think he turned, but he had stopped drinking like 3 years ago. And I said, why did you stop drinking? Because I know people kind of get offended or like, oh, you have a problem. He didn't have a problem. He said to me, and this stuck with me, and it still sticks with me, just for the slight edge. He views entrepreneurship as a competition, and any edge he can get, he wants to have. And I thought that was interesting, right? Not a huge edge, but a slight edge. He built a $200 million empire. And I'm not, I'll be the first to say it. I'm not the smartest. I'm not the strongest. I'm not the fastest. I'm not going to do everything right. I'm going to make a ton of mistakes. But the one thing that I do is I will work, and I will continue to work, and I will never give up on my goals. And as much as I've had ups and downs, burnout, this or that, nothing stops me from continuing to work. And I was talking to my wife about that. She, like, I've had problems. We've had problems as you expand, family, business, things go up and down, but I never stop. And I'm just going to outwork everybody. That's all I can do. That's my secret power, I guess. It's like, I'm just going to consistently outwork you.
So just as well you don't get hangovers then.
I mean, I do, but it takes quite a bit. If I have 2 drinks, I'm not going to be hungover.
When you come to my age, I tell you, hangovers get worse. But yeah. And anyway, moving on from the hangovers a little bit, because you mentioned a few guests you had, including Tom, whose last name I can't pronounce now.
Yeah, Tom Bilyeu from Impact
I
Theory.
mean, what are the things you learned from them? What is there a common trait around all these successful people where you go like, is it just the emotional mindset, the emotional fitness?
It's crazy. I mean, there are always themes every time I interview these successful people. People have built $1 million businesses, to Tom Bilyeu, who had a $1 billion exit with Quest Nutrition, to Monty Moran, who grew Chipotle to $30 billion during his time there, and now it's an $80-90 billion company. The most common thing is absolutely mindset, right? And it is how you handle failure. It's how you handle your approach. Because what you think is going to work in business, you never know what's actually going to work until you try it. And then all of a sudden you're putting out fires here, there, everywhere. And you don't know what's wrong until you start to test it. Your ability to pivoting is a huge response that I get from different interviewees who, when they talk about business struggles, business failures, COVID happening, shutting down their business, changing everything, people failed. Many businesses failed. Many businesses became more successful than ever because they pivoted. So pivoting is crucial to business success. Having a great strategy, of course, is helpful. So you've got to find mentors. They talk a lot about mentorship, right? If you don't have the right mentor to find the right, to have the right strategy, you're not going to be as successful. But more importantly than that, when you have a strategy and it fails, having the emotional fitness, the resiliency, Bedros Keuilian talks about resiliency in his book, Man Up, to have the emotional resiliency to say, all right, I'm not a failure. This is just one way that didn't work. Thomas Edison famously found 10,000 ways that didn't work, but one way that created the light bulb. And so how you view failure is often a common theme amongst these interviewees. They don't view failure as an end point, as this is over. It's a learning point. I can learn how to become better. I can learn what didn't work so I can try something else. So I think a lot of people forget that sometimes you have to try things more than 2 or 3 times. People say, I've tried everything. And you'll sit there and say, well, what do you mean you tried everything? Well, I did this, like working out, losing weight. I stopped drinking soda and I worked out 5 days a week. For how long? For like 3 weeks. I'm like, how long did it take you to gain the weight? Well, 3 years, but I want the results now. So I think that's one of those things that when people say they've tried everything, they've really tried 1 to 3 things over and over again that don't work. So having that resiliency to switch, to try a different strategy, to keep going over and over again. It's like that meme where you see the miner digging for gold, right? And it's 2 pictures. One, the guy's on top digging for gold and he stops 1 inch before the gold. And the other guy down below keeps going and he got it. If you've been
Have you
working...
heard the story that's based on?
No. Is it based on a true story?
It is a true story, yeah. Basically, I can't remember his name. I think he talks about it in Rich Dad, Poor Dad. But basically, like a gold prospector. I think it was like a guy and his uncle. Essentially, there was gold being found, and they like went all in, bought all this mining equipment, and basically, they didn't find as much gold as they thought. So ended up like, right, we're just going to have to sell all this stuff as scrap. And then someone bought it, and then they did a geological survey and found that they were digging, just sort of a fraction away from this like gold reserve. And then the guy that basically, failed, he went off and set up an insurance company, and which became America's most successful insurance company. And he said, I'm never going to stop digging when I'm, because I could just be a centimeter away from gold. I'm paraphrasing here, but
Of course, but for those people listening right now who are working towards a goal and thinking about giving up, there have been so many times in my life I've thought about giving up, but you just don't know how close you are. It might not be tomorrow, but it could be next month. It might be next year, but if you keep going, you'll accomplish your goal. If you stop trying, you'll never get anywhere.
And he's back. It's all right.
Hey.
We kept it going, Volker. We kept it going. Yeah, you're still looking very pixelated. But we were just sort of talking about resilience and never giving up.
I think one of the things too is like, I know your audience just, with man up, man down, right? Like many men, especially as we get into our older years, and I'll be 40 next year.
You're still a youngster.
Come on. I'm feeling it though. 2 kids right now, but yeah. I think we get to an age where, things are changing physically, right? Testosterone's getting lower. Testosterone is one of those things that when you've got a lot of testosterone in your body, you feel different. You're more likely to go after your goals. And I've got one quick exercise I'll talk to you guys through. It's just called power posing. You guys heard of this?
Yeah.
So power posing is great for Amy Cuddy, right? And I love this because it's such a simple exercise for your guys, for anybody listening to do this, men and women alike. You want to, the way I do it though, is to make it really stand out, is I want everybody to, if you're listening to this, I want you to think of a sad person first. I want you to actually imitate a sad person. So a sad person has their shoulders are slumped down, their head's down, their breathing is kind of just shallow, right? So if you do this for 30 seconds and you're sitting there with your head down, you just don't feel any energy. You feel like shit, right? You feel sad, you feel depressed. If you think those thoughts all the time, like you know when somebody looks sad and depressed because they're all mopey, just, oh, okay. So you do that for 30 seconds and then you instantly switch, you snap and you go, okay. And you snap back, head up, chin up, shoulders back, hands on your arm like Superman or Wonder Woman. Like think about Superman standing there looking up at the sky. And if you stand up like this, I mean, literally just from me doing that right now, I can feel it in my voice, the excitement, the energy, the tonality. Well, Amy Cuddy found that by doing this for just 2 minutes, you can increase your testosterone and you're more likely to go after your goals. Also, you're more likely to decrease the stress hormone cortisol. So these simple tools are what can change your life in a moment. And if you can tie many moments together, you start to change your habits. And eventually you can start to change who you are. And I think that's one of those most important things about emotional fitness that, and that's at the very end of the book. The most important chapter is really about changing your identity. Because I don't believe we're out there trying to find ourselves. Like we were born and our identity like flew off to some far off island and we're like, where is it? Who am I? Let me try and find it. You need to create yourself. And specifically men, you need to build yourself up. One of the best ways to do that is by doing things consistently over time and doing hard things consistently over time. So that's one of those big things that I talk about a lot with emotional fitness. In the book, it's just a huge part about how when you struggle, you've got to go back to the basics and you can build these each moment you can make a change.
But I mean, I remember, well, you mentioned Tony Robbins, earlier on in the interview. And I know that, well, one of his quotes that I've often sort of referred back to is, if you change the physical state, you change the mental state. So, it's like when if you feel sluggish or whatever, it's like, well, get out for a walk or, just do 10 star jumps. And yeah, it instantly makes you feel more focused and energized.
It's a question I was asked on another show was, what do you think, how do you change yourself instantly? Is it, because I talk a lot about, similar to what Tony Robbins talks about, is reframing your focus, right? So if you want to change something in your life, you need to change either your perception about what's going on. So what you think it is, how you focus on it, or you can take an action and change it. What's interesting is that, there's a pathway. So we focus on something. We say, all right, this means something, right? So we focus on money. We think it means security, success, happiness, and then we take an action to work to go get it, right? What's interesting about this dynamic is that if you want to change yourself in an instant, sometimes you can't get yourself out by just thinking differently, right? You could ask better questions, but, like some people are like, why am I so depressed right now? Well, that's not really a better question, right? It's a question. It's not a better one. Better question would be, how can I get out of depression? Now you start to look for solutions. Better question would be, how can I become happy right now? Right now you're not even thinking about depression. You're focusing on the goal. Another way to do it is to actually change your physical body. Nobody's depressed if they're in a full-on sprint. You can't be, right? Nobody's sad if you're trying to do something physical and you're exerting all this energy. So what happens is it breaks the mental cycle, that story in your head as you're, running full speed, squatting as much as you can, deadlifting or bench pressing, or, playing a sport, which is great because you're oftentimes playing with another person. But when you're so focused on the physical activity, your mind, the mental cycle breaks. When you come back to it, the endorphins are raised in your body, you feel better. And now you start asking those questions like, how can I be happy right now? And all of a sudden your mind's like, boom, you know what? Maybe I'm going to call a friend. maybe I'm going to write down my goals, and instead of writing them down and throwing that piece of paper in the drawer, I'm going to actually take an action right now to do it. I find that the biggest momentum you have after writing a goal is immediately, right then and there, go take an action.
Yeah. I mean, what you said there, right? Creating yourself, I think for me is a big thing, right? Yeah, there's so much in there. So I have to admit, I haven't read your book, obviously yet. So I put it on the reading list. But I mean, we're coming to an end already. I know I missed part of it thanks to my internet provider, which I should probably name and shame here whilst we're online. I'm glad I'm back. Where can people find out more about what you're doing, Corey? And obviously, your book, I assume, is on Amazon and everywhere else. And if there was one thing you would say everyone should be doing, I know you already talked about the posing and stuff, but one challenge you would give everyone, what would it be?
I would challenge people right now to do something outside their comfort zone. I imagine that people listening to this have a goal, and there's something from that goal, an action that they know they need to take. And this could be not even a goal in business. It could be a goal in life, right? It could be, somebody in your family that you've had an issue with, and one of your goals is to mend that relationship, and you just haven't called them.
Yeah.
I imagine that there's something outside your comfort zone that you've been thinking about for a while and you're unwilling to do. My challenge to you is immediately after you listen to this podcast is to go do it. Don't think about the consequences. Don't think about what might happen. Just do it. People get so in their head that they prevent themselves from doing what they really want to do. Instead of measuring the result, take the action, measure the result. If it doesn't work out, try again.
Brilliant. I love that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So
Yeah. And if you guys want to, if they want to reach out to me or find me, I'm on YouTube and Instagram at Corey Corpodian. You can go to unleashsuccess.com/subscribe to learn more about just kind of what we're doing and get on the email list. And as far as the emotional fitness book, it is on Amazon. We started selling a little bit off of Amazon, but you can go to masteremotionalfitness.com to get that link. And
yeah,
overall, I really appreciate the conversation, guys. And
thank you.
It's been very nice.
No,
Awesome.
thank you for taking the time. That was amazing.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode. Feel free to reach out to Volker or David via our website, www.manupdown.com, or podcast@manupdown.com, with any feedback or to let us know what topics you'd like us to cover in the future. Hear you again soon.